Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Protect Our NDIS Alliance Magan-djin team's online forum tonight. This forum is called NDIS Cuts, What's Happening? And I will be your facilitator tonight. My name is Rowena Specht-White. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm zooming in from the stolen lands of the Yuggera and Turrbal peoples in northern Meanjin, Magan-djin, also known as Brisbane. I am one of the originators of the Protect Our NDIS Alliance nationally, and I'm also a national and local organiser with the Magan-djin team. I am an NDIS participant myself, and I have multiple invisible disabilities, both physical and psychosocial, and my sole income is the disability support pension. I'm really pleased that we've been able to organise this forum to give some more information to the community about where we're at with the NDIS cuts and the NDIS bill. And I'm very grateful that our wonderful presenters have given up their time to join today to give you insight into the bill, and in particular to talk about the impacts of this bill on First Nations disabled communities and culturally and linguistically diverse communities. We will do intros and bios as we go, but I'd like to formally invite Cassie to present the acknowledgement of country to kick us off. I'm just going to spotlight you, Cassie, so that you will appear. Cassie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is it the wrong
Can you
one?
see me?
Cannot see you. Oh, I've spotlighted. There's two of you. Sorry.
Oh,
There's two Cassies. Let me find the right Cassie. Uh, Cassie. There we go. Hey, we can see you now.
thank you. I just wanted to start to say that I'm really excited to be here. I want to take this moment to, sorry, just taking a second. I want to acknowledge the lands that I'm on today, which is the Turrbal people, and pay my respects to the traditional owners of this place. I also want to thank elders past, present, and emerging. I also want to acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people join us. Wherever you're joining from, I pay my respects to your countries, your elders, and your communities. And I thank you for the strength, knowledge, and lived experience you continue to share. My own mob is the Yir Yoront mob from Far North Queensland. Wherever this work takes me, I carry my people with me. And today I carry Turrumbal's country welcome too. I want to thank you for this time, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassie. I'm getting myself back up. Thank you for that really heartfelt and meaningful acknowledgement. That's something that is so important for us to hold in this work, and very grateful for you opening this tonight. So I am now going to do a little outline for you so that you understand what our structure is tonight. I've got some snazzy slides for you. These will be circulated afterwards. For the purposes of the recording, I did this at the start, but I'll do this now. My visual description is I am a white woman with red glasses and silver and green and brown hair, wearing a purple shirt. And this is Rowena speaking. So tonight, as I said, we've got our forum. We have done our acknowledgement of country from Cassie Brophy. Thank you so much. I will be your facilitator, Rowena Specht-White from Protect Our NDIS Alliance Magan-djin team. And the outline, we've done our opening and acknowledgement of country. We're then going to hand over to Brianna Bell from Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion. And Brianna is going to take us over where we are at with the NDIS bill, what the amendments that have been secured actually mean, and what are the problems and issues that still remain. We're then going to hand over to Cassie again, this time speaking for Mob Queensland and explaining the impact of the NDIS bill on the First Nations disabled community. Then we'll go to Ange Boyd, who's joining us from AMPARO Advocacy, Inc. And Ange will be speaking about the impacts of the NDIS bill on disabled people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Then we'll hand over to Senator Jordan Steele-John, and he will give us some reflections on what we've heard tonight, as well as welcome us to the Q&A section. The Q&A section will last 25 minutes, and we do have Jordan needing to leave us at 6:15 p.m. So we've timed it nicely so that will hit the end of our Q&A. Then we'll go to Oriella Williams from Protect Our NDIS Alliance, Magan-djin, and they will talk about next steps and a bit of a call to action. And we'll have closing remarks. So that is the outline. And I'd like to now introduce our first speaker, Brianna. So I would like to give you a bit of a bio. So Brianna Bell is a disabled woman, lawyer, and NDIS participant from Magan-djin, Brisbane. She's worked part-time in QAI's, that's Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion's NDIS Appeal Service since 2022, providing advocacy and legal advice to people appealing NDIS decisions at the tribunal, as well as contributing to systemic analysis and advocacy about the legal, policy, and practical issues in the NDIS. As a wheelchair user and assistance dog handler with complex physical, neurological, cognitive, and sensory impairments, she's also experienced firsthand the harm caused by systems that assume a common sense approach will prevent flawed rules from producing bad results. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to switch over to Brianna so that she can be spotlighted. Add a spotlight. There she is. And I will remove my own spotlight to allow for handing over. Brianna, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rowena, for that lovely introduction. Obviously, I'm Brianna. I'm a white woman with short brown hair, currently wearing blue glasses and a multicolored dress. And I also want to start by acknowledging that I am also joining the forum today from Yagara and Turrbal lands. I've been asked to talk through 3 questions today. It's a very ambitious schedule we've got ahead. But what I'm hoping to run through is what the amendments to the NDIS bill mean, whether they resolve the major concerns that have been raised with the bill, and what risks remain in the bill which will be harmful to disabled people. So before I get into those, I just want to start not to check anyone else's language, just to clarify what I mean when I say certain things throughout this. If I say the Act, I'm talking about the NDIS Act as it currently exists, not including these amendments and the bill that we're currently discussing. If I'm talking about the bill, it's the bill as it was first introduced to Parliament usually, and then the amendments, I'm talking about changes to the bill that have been made since it was introduced. I know even amongst my colleagues who are lawyers, we all get a bit confused sometimes when we're throwing around amendments in the context of a bill where you're already amending an act. So it's just good to clarify what I'm saying. But I'm hoping, I've sent these slides and also a marked up copy of the bill with tracked changes with the amendments that have been made through to Rowena. And she said that she'll hopefully be able to send that through to everyone in the forum after it happens. So you won't have to be frantically taking notes of these details. I've put them in the slides so that you have the notes if you want them. But a lot of the detail in the slides is really niggly specific stuff. It's not actually necessarily important to understand the stuff as a whole. It's just in case people want the reference. So first up, the amendments to the bill. What has been changed since it was first introduced to Parliament? I've divided the amendments into 8 categories, and this slide goes through the pinpoint reference if you want to find it in the bill, as well as what it's referring to in the original act. This is not super important, but the overview is basically the 8 groups of amendments that have been made. We'll go through them one by one, but I will spend a bit more time on the amendments that focus or that have more direct effects on participants compared to ones that are more to do with providers or things that will only have quite subsequent effects on participants. The legislation is 110 pages long. There's a lot of detail. Even my colleagues, the group of us lawyers together, have some disagreements about what exactly these provisions are likely to mean if they're implemented. So if there is confusion, it's almost certainly not you. It's a lot to get through. So I'll stop wasting time with saying that and just move on and talk about it. So the first group of amendments is not super important. It's just that at some point in the future, the Minister will arrange for there to be a review of how the amendments are working, and that will happen at the same time as the review that a similar section in the 2024 amendments requires will happen. The second one, again, this has been much talked about actually. The amendment, I guess, that creates a bit of executive overreach. That means that the Minister has a lot of power that wasn't previously held by anyone, or power that was previously held by the NDIA will now be, I guess, unilateral for the Minister. The amendments mean that this has been narrowed so that it will only apply to the things that they said it would apply to, which is great to have that confirmation. So this will only be to do with social, economic and community participation or improved daily living skills. Not great that the power is there, but it's good at least that some restrictions have been added. Similarly, there's been some clarifications about exactly how this power would work, just to do with the administrative side of it. The next group is just a definition of reasonable attempts to contact a participant that have to be made before their plan can be suspended or access can be revoked. Again, these are restrictions to the power which, for the most part, we'd been told would be applied, but now we have specific detail about exactly what do we think is a reasonable attempt, because I think most people have heard a story about the NDIA, phoning up someone who is deaf or hard of hearing and says, do not phone me on their NDIS file, and they keep on doing it. It's that really simple stuff that they have to use accessible methods. They have to make 5 attempts. If there's a nominee, they can't just repeatedly try to contact the participant and not try the nominee, those sorts of things. The next 2 amendments are kind of grouped, but I'm particularly passionate about these ones, so I've separated them out into the permanence definition and the appropriate treatment definition. The permanence definition hasn't changed much. Mostly it's just been a single subclause that has been removed, which was for some fussy legal reasons where it kind of implied some things that the drafters didn't mean for it to imply. So it's been taken out and the other clauses have been reordered accordingly. I just want to clarify, though, that most of the language that's in that clause is still included in the definition of appropriate treatment. So it's not that that threshold has necessarily changed a lot. It's specifically that the definition said any reasonable treatment, I think it was, and then any other treatment, and that was concerning. So the change to appropriate treatment definition has done 2 things. It's added in 2 notes. One is that restricted practices cannot be considered appropriate treatments. The other is that publicly funded treatments will satisfy the criteria regularly undertaken or performed in Australia. So both of those, again, things that have been suggested, but it's really important to have them there in writing. Next up, we have amendments to details to do with the plan management providers and the panel. That's essentially just to manage conflicts of interest and doesn't directly relate to participant experiences, so I won't go into it. The next one is the ministerial pricing advice disclosure. Again, this is a transparency measure rather than something that is going to really directly affect participants as an amendment. And then the last group of amendments is another transparency measure requiring publishing of standard operating procedure instruments for any automation of administrative decisions 7 days prior to the implementation of those procedures. So they are both good to have. So this is the roundup, I guess. What have the amendments improved in the bill? They, in my view, they are generally beneficial. It's better that we have these amendments than that we don't. There are some limitations to executive overreach. There are some definitions of things that were otherwise quite unclear. And there's increased transparency, which is always beneficial. I've totally lost track of time. I'm so sorry, Rowena. But the next one is just what access eligibility issues remain. I guess actually what I've done here is I've tried to break up the remaining issues into 5 groups. Hopefully I will make it through all of them. So in terms of access eligibility issues, there are three main groups. The first one is the functional capacity definition. The really big concerns there are that it doesn't consider context when looking at someone's functional capacity, and we know that when context is removed, that disproportionately harms people who are marginalised or from marginalised backgrounds, or people who have very complex disability or life presentations. It's also really concerning that the transitional rules that will be used for this purpose have no legislative overview at all. We already know from the 2024 amendments that those transitional rules can last for quite a while. So that's really worrying. The permanence and appropriate treatment definitions are also really concerning for, I'm going to say, three main reasons. One, again, it disproportionately harms people who are already experiencing marginalisation. Second is that it introduces a lot of uncertainty to a previously fairly certain definition. And that means that effectively at this point, we don't really know what these rules are going to mean. And the third concern from my perspective is that the NDIA doesn't currently consistently apply the existing permanence rules to different applicants to the NDIS. And it's somewhat baffling to me that they would choose to change this definition when they're not already applying the existing very high threshold to all applicants in the same way. The last change in the bill is that eligibility is restricted if other services are potentially available. So that's concerning for things like if you acquired your disability via a motor vehicle accident, work accident, those sorts of things. There's already existing protections that stop duplication across those systems. So it's worrying that that has been added in there. Planning issues. There are a lot of restrictions on unscheduled reassessments in this bill, and that is especially concerning when we look at the fact that only 47% of scheduled reassessments go ahead as of the last quarterly report. So this could potentially mean that people just can't access reassessments. It will reduce review rights. It's quite concerning. There's also a provision in there that providers won't be able to apply on participants' behalf, which I believe has been introduced because of concerns that providers are applying where a reassessment isn't necessary. But in reality, it's also going to mean that when a participant doesn't have the capacity to request a reassessment themselves, they can't ask their OT or their support coordinator to make that application on their behalf. That's another provision that's going to disproportionately affect people who have the least capacity to deal with the impact. There's also the replacement of plan extensions with plan renewals, which means you'll lose unspent funding, reduces review rights, those sorts of things. There's no changes to the scheduled reassessments not being done. The next one is what planning issues? No, that's what I just said. Sorry, guys.
I'll just jump in, Brianna. We are
Yep.
going a bit over time. So
Okay.
if you want to round it up in a minute,
yeah,
that would be
sure.
great. Thank you.
That's way more gracious than I deserved, Rowena. Thank you. The major issues still in the bill. Lots of those extra details are in the slides, including someone asked me about appeal timeframes, those sorts of things. I put it all in tables if anyone wants to reference back. The major issues are basically what everyone's been talking about this whole time. I don't think any of the amendments that have been introduced actually deal with any of those big issues that are being discussed. I've set them all out here. But again, I think this is a really concerning bill. I think that they should go back to the drawing board, correctly identify the underlying issues that are causing the concerns that they're trying to deal with this bill, and they should address them with more efficient changes, most of which don't require legislative reform, a lot of which can be just changed within the NDIA's own policy and procedure. Good.
Thank you very much, Brianna. There's a lot in there, and
sorry, that was very overwhelming.
there was a lot in there. We will be sending the slides around to everyone here so that you can read them afterwards, and you can see there's contact details for Queensland Advocacy for Inclusion included in those slides for any further questions. Please continue to use the Q&A function in the Zoom or the chat to write your questions. We will be going to the Q&A section after we have heard from our other presenters. And right now, we're going to hear from our next presenter. I'm going to get the right thing up on my screen. And that is our the fantastic Cassie Brophy. I'm just going to share my screen properly. No, I'm not, because Zoom doesn't like me. Let's try that again. Okay. Click and share. And I will slideshow, and I will add a spotlight. You should be able to still see our, should be able to see all of our two Auslan interpreters. And I'd like to introduce Cassie. Cassie Brophy, you heard from earlier. She is from Mob for Mob, Queensland. Cassie is a proud Yir Yoront woman from the Kowanyama region of Far North Queensland and the CEO of Mob for Mob, which is Queensland's peak body for First Nations people with disability. Cassie is a respected leader, advocate, and strategist, and she is committed to creating lasting change by strengthening communities, influencing systems, and ensuring the voices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with disability are at the centre of decisions that affect their lives. I'd now like to hand over to Cassie to speak to us about the impacts of the NDIS bill on the First Nations disabled community. Over to you, Cassie.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Cassie Brophy. I am the CEO of Mob for Mob. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm wearing a white Mob for Mob polo shirt. It has Aboriginal art on it that has been done by Uncle Paul Calcott, who is one of our board members. And I have darkish coppery hair. I just, as was stated, Mob for Mob is Queensland's funded peak body for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We are community controlled. Our board is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and South Sea Islander people with disability, and everything we do is for mob by mob. We have 7 absolutely amazing board members from all across Queensland. And I think we have a couple on the hookup today. So they're always supporting me and supporting the work across Queensland. Before I dive in, I just want to do a quick conversation around who we are and what we do, and kind of just give a little detail of that. So I'll be really quick because I do want to get into the detail with you. But we are Queensland's funded peak body for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, as I stated. We also have projects and across Queensland and further afield. We partner with QDN on the response to the DRC, so the Disability Royal Commission, and we're working across its recommendations, and obviously we're mainly focused on those that are specific to First Nations. We also have a partnership with Reframing Autism and working on their current work around autism and youth justice. And we also among other things, we're also working with UQ on their First Nations disability employment as well. We also take our community voices and make sure that those conversations are being heard and being had. So recently we went to New York to the COS19 and spoke and had some side events as well. But we also do roundtables and attend committees and panels here in Queensland as well. And we work with lots of different organisations, including our national organisation, FPDN. So when I was asked tonight to speak, I really wanted to unpack what this means for our people. There is lots of conversations happening and lots of things that are impacting, and I'm having those conversations every day. But in a lot of our communities, the impact is just at the moment a lot of fear and a lot of concern. So being able to have those conversations is really important. But one of the things is around the ICANN tool and assessment and how that's going to affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, as that has not been culturally validated at all. Also in a lot of our communities, there's only one disability service provider moving forward, then there's actually nothing to fall back on, and it means there's no alternative service to pivot to. A lot of our families have already had culturally unsafe experiences with mainstream systems, and a great many of our families really are already feeling the pressure previously. So this is just another huge impact on top of that. The likely response for them to continue to appeal and to fight decisions is just not there. It's the aspect of it's just walk away, and we don't want that to happen. So we're really having these deep conversations with our people at this time. So I've wound it down to about 6 things that we're really fighting for, and we stand with FPDN on a lot of those conditions. So I'll just quickly talk to them because I am very conscious of time. So the first one, as I had already previously said, is around the cultural validation of the ICANN and making sure that before this is rolled out, that it does have First Nations participants being on board to consult through that process. The next one is around the no exit without alternative. We want a guaranteed policy promise around that those that are exiting the system or will have reduced support, that there will be something to fall into and have full support around. The third one is determining funding for Aboriginal community-controlled organisations within the Thriving Kids and the foundational supports, making sure that those community-controlled organisations have the ability to deliver those services and support those people in community. Our fourth one is immediate funding for the First Nations Disability Forum. So more than 2 years after the Disability Royal Commission's recommendation, there's only been conversation and consultation around standing this up, and we are fighting for it to be stood up immediately. It has been nearly 3 years now. I say 2, that's being nice. Our fifth one is around First Nations Disability Outcome Framework, so co-led by community and linking that to closing the gap. And the sixth one is around the public reporting and outcomes, so access, plan reductions and scheme exits, and making sure that they're disregarded by the First Nations status and by remoteness as well. I think what the effect is the changes that are going to be made are going to be heard and felt in communities and remote locations far quicker before it's ever going to hit Canberra and for those in the specific metro areas of those places. So I think it's really important that we start these conversations in regional and remote areas instead of starting them in metro areas where it's always started. So we're very specific to that this is going to be a very difficult process for us. One of the biggest things that I do want to say is that the social and community participation is where a lot of our mob pick up that cultural interaction and that on-country and community space. If that's taken away from them, then they're just only taking care of their disability. As for a First Nations person with disability, it's one in the same. It's not separated. We are First Nations people with disability. We are not a separate entity, and we need to make sure that it's culturally inclusive and cared for in that process. So thank you, everybody, and I'm very excited to have questions and answers later and to discuss this even more. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cassie. We really appreciate you giving up your time tonight and focusing on this really critical impact. So yes, please continue writing your questions down and we'll go to Q&A a little bit later. So I'm now going to introduce our next speaker. Just get the right slide up in front of me so that this can work for everyone. And share my screen. We have got with us tonight Ange Boyd from AMPARO Advocacy. Ange brings over 20 years experience in human and community services and has spent over 3 years with AMPARO Advocacy, delivering independent and systemic advocacy. Ange's work includes facilitating the Inclusive Leadership Network and leading a culturally and linguistically diverse inclusive project that strengthens lived experience leadership and co-designs culturally responsive advocacy tools for governments and community organisations. So I'm going to make Ange a spotlight so that you can all see her. And I'll hand over to you, Ange, to talk about the impacts on the CALD community.
Thanks, thanks, Rowena, for having me here tonight. Can you hear me? Beautiful. So I'm a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a blue top this evening. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm coming today from the Yugara and Turrbal people lands today. Before I get into what AMPARO Advocacy does, I'd like to give you a couple of numbers because this is where culturally and linguistically diverse, the gap is for culturally and linguistically diverse peoples in this bill, where it starts from. So almost a quarter of Queenslanders were born overseas, and close to 1 in 5 of us speaks a language other than English at home. But the most recent NDIS data shows that only in Queensland, only 5.1% of NDIS participants are from recorded as being from a CALD background. That's a massive gap between how many of us there are and how many of us are getting support. And it's not just about awareness. CALD applicants are consistently found eligible for the scheme at meaningfully lower rates than everyone else, around 66% to 83%, which is inequity. That gap has been documented for years and it hasn't closed. So this isn't just about who knows the NDIS exists, it's happening at the point of decision making too. So as Rowena said, my name's Ange Boyd. I'm the systemic advocate, and as well as many other things at AMPARO Advocacy. AMPARO Advocacy is a community-based organisation here in Queensland that provides independent advocacy, both individual and systemic, with and for people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds or CALD backgrounds with disability. A lot of the people we work alongside are refugees. Our management committee is made up of mostly people from CALD backgrounds with disability themselves. So for us, this isn't advocacy for our communities from the outside. It's led by people with lived experience. So you've heard from Brianna about what this bill, what is in this bill, and from Cassie about what it means for First Nations people. What I want to talk about is what happens when you layer racism, language barriers, trauma, and migration stress on top of everything else. A lot of these changes are written in neutral, bureaucratic language, functional capacity, contact requirements, treatment exhaustion. On paper, none of it says core communities. But procedural fairness isn't just about rules existing on a page. It depends on whether someone can understand the process, get an interpreter, gather evidence, and access advocacy before a decision gets made. For a lot of the people that we support, none of that can be assumed. We've put in a submission that has identified 14 recommendations. However, with the time that I have here this evening, I want to give you 3 examples from the advocacy work that we do. The details have been changed to protect people's privacy because these aren't hypothetical risks, they're already happening. So the first one I want to talk about is contact and suspension powers. So in this bill expands the NDIS's power to suspend and eventually revoke someone's access if they can't be contacted. And Brianna talked about that before. It sounds reasonable until you ask, contacted how? So many of the people we support don't answer calls from private or unfamiliar numbers. That's not disengagement, that's trauma, that's fear built from past experiences with authority. That's a completely reasonable response to unknown numbers calling out of the blue. So we continue to see the NDIS fail to translate with written communications, even when interpreter requirement is clearly recorded on someone's file. So imagine getting a letter that sets a deadline. Maybe it's about your plan being rolled over, maybe a suspension, and you don't even know a deadline applies because it's in a language you don't read. We consider that a form of indirect discrimination. And under this bill, that exact kind of communication failure could be a trigger for someone to lose their supports altogether. The next one I want to talk about is assumptions about parental capacity. So the bill also relies on the assumption about what parents and families can informally provide. We see the real world version of that constantly in the work that we do. So a family we work with has 2 children, both with level 3 autism and significant behavioural support needs. Their NDIS plan was substantially cut and parental responsibility was cited as the reason. So I think it's really good to be clear that what those 2 children need goes well beyond what any parent could reasonably expected to provide alone, let alone a parent who may be also managing their own trauma, resettlement stress, or isolation from family and community supports back home. So when you treat complex, high-intensity care needs as just parenting, you're not saving money. You're actually putting children's safety and well-being at risk and putting families under pressure that isn't sustainable. I also want to talk about functional capacity and treatment exhaustion. So the bill introduces a narrower, more standardised functional capacity test and tightens the rules around proving a disability is permanent. So including requiring people to have exhausted appropriate treatment first. So for a lot of the people that we support, disability doesn't show up as one clean, single impairment. It's trauma-related. So it's trauma-related psychosocial disability combined with physical impairments shaped by everything from settlement stress to family circumstances. So a narrow tick box approach excludes exactly the people whose needs are the most layered and the hardest to separate out. And appropriate treatment sounds simple until you ask who can actually access it. So someone on a Centrelink income can't afford private therapy. Someone with PTSD might be expected to have tried something like EMDR that simply isn't realistically available to them. And plenty of people from refugee communities don't feel safe doing trauma counselling through an interpreter, especially in small tight-knit communities where confidentiality is real and a real and valid concern. So treatment that's only theoretically available isn't genuine access. So what we're asking, so what AMPARO Advocacy wants to see change is not just these three things, but many other changes. But in short, we want to see culturally safe, interpreter-backed processes for assessments, contact and suspension decisions, not English only, digital only defaults. Real exceptions built into reassessment and review rights, where language barriers, lack of advocacy, or cultural misunderstanding affected the original decision. No blank assumptions about what families or the community can informally provide. Investment in independent advocacy, and crucially, advocacy support before people lose access, not just after the harm's already been done. So none of this is about opposing a sustainable NDIS. It's about making sure sustainability doesn't quietly become a word for shifting risk and harm onto people already facing the most barriers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ange. And it's really important for us to hear about those impacts. It affects so many people, and there's so many layers that this bill doesn't address. Thank you for giving your time and sharing tonight and your expertise, Ange. So now I would like to introduce our next presenter, who is Senator Jordan Steele-John. Jordan is a Greens senator for Western Australia and a proud disabled person. He is a passionate human rights activist who actively campaigns for disability rights, peace, and an equitable healthcare system. Jordan is also on the Senate committee as part of the Senate inquiry into the NDIS bill. And as I said, he will be needing to leave us at 6:15. So I invite him to give some reflections on what he's heard tonight already, and then we'll move into the Q&A. Over to you. I'm going to actually pin you so that you can be seen, Jordan. Give me a second to sort that out. Let me find Jordan. It is impossible, apparently.
I'll start talking, and if you pin me during, that's fine.
I found you. It's good. Okay, over to you,
Hey,
Jordan.
superb. Okay, fantastic. Look, I'll be very brief because I want to be around for as much of the Q&A as I can. I just want to first of all thank the Alliance for organising this event and so many incredible gatherings and actions during the course of this campaign. My name, as Rowena said, is Jordan Steele-John. I'm the Greens spokesperson for the NDIS and for disability more broadly, and I'm coming to you from unceded Noongar Whadjuk Budja, just south of Perth, and I'm wearing glasses. I've got brownish curly hair, and I'm wearing like a jumper with a collar through it that is kind of green, and my background is blurred. So a couple of key things I wanted to share. First of all, reflections on the panelists' contributions. Just so grateful for your expertise, and what you've shared with us tonight is so useful in fleshing out the concerns that so many of us have. I thought when I was listening to Brianna go through the QAI analysis, I agree with everything except for there's a bit around plan management, that amendment that you talked about there. Our analysis of that amendment is actually that it is really super dodgy, and we voted against it in the House because it seems super dodgy. See what everyone else thinks, though. The amendment says that conflict of interest, this is our interpretation, we may have got it wrong, but we did look through it quite carefully, says that conflict of interest processes need to be observed by smaller entities, plan managers, and those kind of structures, but not by bigger ones. The larger you get, conflict of interest can be dealt with through an agreement with the agency rather than legislation, which I think is very strange. I know exactly why they've done it. It's because they were threatened in the inquiry to be taken to some international trade tribunals because of the negative impact on some people's corporate bottom lines, but we're actually quite worried about that one. Beyond that, everything that has been said today is absolutely in line with the Greens' concerns. And I just want to flag that there are 31 days between now and the 14th of August. On the 14th of August, the government will begin attempting to ram this bill through. And their current intention is to make very little, if any, additional change to the legislation from what we now have before us. So that is our challenge, I think, as a movement, as a community that has come together to fight this bill. We have 31 days to ensure that when the 14th of August comes, the government cannot pass the bill through the Senate. It passed it through the House. It was always going to pass it through the House because they have the numbers there. That's what it means to be the government. But it is the Senate where it can decide where it will be decided whether this bill passes or not. And the key to making sure that this bill is chucked in the bin, is prevented from passing, is flipping the Liberals from their current position of flagging some concerns, but ultimately supporting the legislation, to opposing the legislation outright, or believing that the legislation might pass but should just pass very slowly. We can work with either of those outcomes, because if they land in, we'll pass it, but we're not going to help Labor move quicker, then, there are lots of processes we can put in place to ensure that the bill can't pass without proper additional scrutiny and answers to the questions that so many of us have. I'm going to be really honest with you. If the vote happened today, the bill would pass. I've been talking to some of my colleagues across the aisle, and the Liberals are not yet feeling enough pressure. We have additional hearings that are going to occur in a couple of weeks' time, where we hope to highlight other aspects of the bill. But the thing that can make the most difference is if as many people as possible pick up the phone, jump on your emails, go to your Liberal MP's office and share with them your concerns and your demand that this bill be chucked in the bin. Particularly important is to contact Angus Taylor, the leader of the opposition, because he is the one who will have the final say. He's also one of the Liberal MPs that on the current polling will lose his goddamn seat if the election is held tomorrow. So he's very sensitive to what his community thinks about him. So if you are in Angus Taylor's seat or know anybody who is in Angus Taylor's seat, it's particularly important that you make your position known to him directly in the next 31 days. So let's keep reaching out to those Liberal MPs. Let's keep connecting with our fellow community members. We've got a National Day of Action coming up as well, and talking with our friends and family members about what this bill actually means, because those are the things that will make the difference. My final thought to you is this. Don't let yourselves feel as though the government is the one arguing for a sustainable NDIS or tackling fraud. This bill does nothing to tackle fraud. Well, it does very little to tackle, tiny little piece. And we know that because you follow the money of this bill, and the vast majority of the money raised is raised through cutting people's plans, not actually cracking down on fraudulent big providers. And when it comes to sustainability, if the government needs more money, well, then let's actually make sure that the gas exporters are actually required to pay a fair share of tax, or maybe let's buy one less nuclear submarine from Donald Trump. How about that as a sustainability measure, rather than cutting in half the time that people have to spend outside? So I'll leave it there in the full knowledge that we want to bounce into a Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jordan, and thank you for highlighting where we're at with this. I'm now going to add spotlights for all of our speakers so that we can move into the Q&A section. I am just adding, I should be able to add a spotlight for Cassie. Why can't I'll just take myself off. There we go. Remove spotlight and add Cassie. There we go. Okay, so we have got, yes, we have. Fantastic. Okay, we are in the Q&A section. I am very excited to share with you that we have a lot of questions in our Q&A section and in the chat. We have had our volunteers in the background going through to pull out questions so that we can go through some questions in themes to get through. So I'd like to start off with a couple of questions for Cassie. So rather than call on people given the time, I am going to read out the questions that are written down, and then we will see how we go on time. So we had a question from Mike. Is the disability outcomes framework available anywhere? And we had a question from you for you from Muriel. The bill explanatory memorandum indicates there may be an impact on closing the gap outcomes. Are you and your community concerned about this? What needs to change for First Nations people and community? So it's kind of two questions there for you, Cassie.
Thank you. I did answer in the chat to Mike around the framework. So there was previously a framework that was stood up, to be stood up under DHGA. However, they have now changed that to a strategy. And the strategy has no concrete commitments around it. It's kind of a like we should do, if you could do, it would be nice to do, rather than concrete requirements that has to be done around the First Nations strategy. So that is something that we are pushing to be changed and be put back in place. And we are also working with FPDN on that work. So that is the question answered for Mike. The question around the closing the gap and if we are concerned, we are absolutely concerned around those things. For First Nations people with disability, closing the gap is about more than access to services. It's about self-determination, cultural safety and equitable outcomes. So for the NDIS reforms, they're just creating more barriers and reducing cultural safety supports at a larger level. I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. I've just frozen, so I do apologise.
We can still hear you.
Okay, fantastic. That's good. That's all that matters, really. So for us, what needs to change is First Nations people with disability need to be involved in the designing process. And I do love that there has been a lot of this aspect around co-designing, which is fantastic. And we do get invited to a lot of things to attend and be a part of the co-design. But the problem is that we're still not being heard at the table. So we're getting invited to the table now, which is better than we ever were before. But during those conversations and us co-designing, they still take those pieces of recommendation, and there is no role around that to actually enact those recommendations that we are providing. So we're at the table. We just need the next step to happen for that. But we are definitely very concerned.
Thank you, Cassie. I've got a couple of questions that I think probably are most appropriate for Jordan. So we've got a question here about when will the government release the Department of Treasury modelling of the impacts of the bill? What is the figure the Treasury estimates will be the number of preventable deaths of disabled people? And another question about modelling of participant impact and psychosocial risk. I guess.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be really brief. They won't release any of those things, um, either because they don't have the data, because not because it isn't possible to gather it, but because they don't want it. So they have no interest in the number of preventable deaths. They have no interest in the flow through economic impacts, even though they will be profound, because for every dollar that is invested in the NDIS, some $2.25 in economic activities generated. They don't want to know the answers to these questions because they just want to pass the bill, because they just want a combination of the money that they believe they will raise from it, to fund things like defence projects. And they also want the pat on the back from the Australian Financial Review for being tough on a budget issue. So they won't release those things. They don't want to release those things. A lot of people in the government know that these reforms will have catastrophic impacts. Cuts will have catastrophic impacts on people with psychosocial disability, for example. They currently don't care. And that's why we have to inflict the level of political pain necessary to make them access the only thing that really seems to have feeling anymore in the government, which is a desire to keep their own job. I hope I don't sound too blunt, but I don't want people feeling and thinking that, something's possible when they've made it really clear they have no interest in doing those things.
Thanks, Jordan. Very sobering, but it's good. This is a space for us to realize what is reality and how we can fight back. So we have a couple of questions here around what human rights and anti-discrimination protections could protect disabled people's bodies from this legislation. So this is in relation to things around inaccessible treatments, appropriate treatments, being, required to have a shunt operation, even though it's not a cure, that sort of thing. What can you speak to about that?
So first of all, in terms of the legislation that could be relevant here, the Disability Discrimination Act and our status as a signatory to the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People could be a fruitful basis for us to look at maybe an appeal to the United Nations. I think there's probably grounds for it given the impact of the legislation as written. The reason I haven't advocated for it is this government has shown it's very willing to be in flagrant violation of all UN treaties in terms of its actions in support of the US-Israeli genocide in Gaza, for example. So it is certainly something to look at, but I don't think it's the kind of cure-all that we would want. It's still going back to this is a political goal they're trying to achieve, which can be prevented by counter-political action by the community, getting the numbers in the Senate to block or slow down the legislation. In relation to medical treatments and what is defined as appropriate, I'm so grateful to the person who shared that example of hydrocephaly and spina bifida and the question around the use of a shunt. Unfortunately, we negotiated very hard with the government for amendments when Parliament was sitting. They would not move on the question of whether an appropriate medical treatment should be any more tightly defined than what we got them to do, which is not a restricted practice and available under Medicare. We went for wait times, we went for medically recommended, we went for a bunch of things, and they would not move. So it's one of the riskiest parts of the bill, in my view, and I really feel it as somebody with cerebral palsy who made choices around my treatment and care based on my quality of life rather than a general view of what my priority should have been as a kid, which was, oh, I should want to walk again, no matter how much that hurt or no matter how many operations I needed to have. So I didn't have a number of the operations that were medically suggested to me because I didn't want to have that pain. I didn't really value being able to do a stagger walk that wasn't any more use to me than being in a manual wheelchair. And these are the kinds of decisions that I'm concerned will then be used against us as a reason why, well, until you do those things, you can't get on the NDIS. So yeah, that's why we're still fighting the medical provisions, as well as the parental responsibility provisions as well.
If I can, I just quickly add one thing from a legal perspective there. I think, sorry, this is not a disagreement with anything that Jordan just said. Just in terms of appropriate treatment, it's actually concerning in a broader way than just whether or not you're willing to have the, I guess, medical consequences of a particular treatment or the disability consequences. The way that they phrase the note, a person's individual circumstances include, you know, personal, financial, and geographic location. It also, the way that's drafted suggests that even a situation as simple as, say, you have a single parent who's responsible for the care of a young child, the appropriate treatment would require hospitalization for 2 weeks. In all respects, they're happy to have that treatment, except for the fact that there's no one to care for their child. The fact that they can't reasonably access that treatment isn't a reason why that isn't appropriate treatment under this legislation. So it's really, the risk is quite broad.
That's a powerful example, Brianna, and I think that also is equally as applicable to somebody's employment status, right? They could, under the way that they've drafted it, because they've been really explicit that appropriate does not include financial circumstances, broader circumstances, geography. Like if undergoing the treatment would mean that I lost my job because I need to take medical leave that have got an entitlement for, too bad, so sad under the current law. And what's really infuriating to me is that we asked the department about this, the government department that drafted this, and they started using the language of like, well, this isn't, this is just people making choices about what's important to them. If people choose not to do these things in order to get, well, then that's get freedom of choice. And that is some disgusting coercive nonsense, in my view.
Thank you very much. This is horrifying for all of us, I know, but we've got to understand the impacts of this bill. We've got a couple of questions that follow on from the concern about what is appropriate. Getting narrower, yes, we've now got this amendment saying not restrictive practices, but what does that actually mean? We've got a question flagging from the deaf community around how does that impact on deaf people forced to have cochlear implants before they would be provided funds for Auslan interpretive and other supports?
Yeah.
And a question from Jonathan about whether electroconvulsive therapy is part of the restrictive practices definition.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, okay, so first of all, what we achieved in the amendment, because this is one of the Greens amendments, was the restricted practices piece. It means that anything that is defined as a restricted practice or that can be defined as a restricted practice cannot be an appropriate thing to require somebody to do, which is a solid protection. Should knock out things like medical restraint, medicated restraints and things like that. Should knock out well, there's a question over electrotherapy, right? Because of its kind of dual status as a legitimate medical intervention in some cases, but also with other flow-on physical and psychological effects. Ultimately, these things will be decided in the form of a rule that the government will make, a piece of operational language they will write, and then the ability to argue whether or not they've met the definition of a restrictive practice there. There was a second piece, restrictive practice, and what was the other? Oh, cochlear, yeah, right. So like the minister has said, oh no, I don't know why I'm doing it with a British accent, but like he said that cochlear implants was one of the things he specifically cited as something they wouldn't do. They wouldn't require people to have a cochlear implant. And while that's incredibly good news that they've flagged that as an intention, we'll have to see that in the rules. And also, there's, as many people in the deaf community know, there's a difference between, like, it's not just cochlear or, cultural and necessarily affirming access to treatment. There's a whole band of other, interventions and denial of access to language that can then become a problem. So yeah, we're going to have to look at the rules, but again, we shouldn't have to look at the rules because we should actually chuck the bill in the bin and start again. And that's got to be where we keep our mindset through this next 31 days. We keep our mindset with our goal is to scrap this bill or to slow it down. Once it's passed, if it passes, that is the time then to think about reaction, compromise, collaboration, whatever. But we will have the most leeway to get the most change possible if we keep ourselves focused on stopping this damn thing. Because as Brianna said, it's actually the problems in the scheme are mostly able to be solved through operational changes. They're not legislative. The government doesn't need any additional powers to make the scheme work for disabled people.
Yeah. We've got to keep that focus, don't we? We're in a fight until the 14th of August. We've got, I know you have to head off. I want to group this sort of general question, and it might be a Jordan or Brianna or anyone else who'd like to input. This is kind of two parts. So the first is, how will the bill affect disabled peoples who have only just applied for the NDIS or are planning to in the near future? And a note that plans are already being cut. Will they be subject to another harsh cut after some form of the legislation has passed?
Oh, I can take that one first. So, yes, they will be cut again. It's been made very clear. If you've just been cut, you'll be cut again. So yeah, whatever you've just been cut by, you can take it if it's in the social and community participation space and isn't a employment related support and isn't related to health, disability related to critical health supports, then whatever you've just had cut, you'll have it cut in half again if the government gets their way. And in relation to what was the other part of the question? It was will it be cut again and
how will it affect people who've only just applied or are planning to in the near
oh,
future?
yeah, well, if you've only just applied, it's not clear. It depends which bucket of type of person you've been put into. Brianna might actually know. Would you know the
Um,
answer to that?
my instinct is to say I have to take that on notice. Sorry. No, but I think off the
Yeah.
top of my head, my recollection is that it applies to all pending access decisions, regardless of when the person applied. If the decision hasn't been made prior to the commencement of the sections, I believe it applies, which is similar to how the 2024 amendments rolled out, where it applied even to people who were still appealing at tribunal. It's going to come out quite quickly. But I think the counterpoint to that is that that's not a reason to not apply. There are a lot of disability types and demographics where the NTIA is already incredibly strict on those applications. And if you happen to fall within one of those, you might be looking at basically the same access process. So you shouldn't not try to seek the support that you need just because these amendments are being proposed. It's still worth trying for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Now I'm gonna have to go at this point, folks.
yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming together and for your kind of contributions tonight. I want to kind of end on a message of hope because I know some of what I've said is has been a bit maybe a bit blunt. There is there we are the hope we are looking for in this moment. There are 31 days, and the thing that government have counted on is that we will lose hope, and that we will kind of go quietly into the night. And I know that a lot of us are tired, and I know that a lot of us have been fighting this for a very long time. I wouldn't be saying here that we've got to keep up an incredible momentum of burning ourselves out from now for the next couple of years. I would say that if you have anything in the tank to give, if you burn with anger and indignation at any of these things that we've discussed tonight, it makes you feel a bit better in my experience, if you take those feelings and channel them into an action, in the period of time where it actually can do something. And now is that time. If you've ever been thinking, oh, well, in the worst case scenario, I will say this, I will post about this, I will contact this person. Now is that time. Now is the moment that you've been waiting for to have that conversation, make that call, send that email. And I don't know what the ultimate outcome of this will be, but I do know that if we all together give everything that we can over this 31 days, then regardless of the outcome, we will know that we have done something collectively to be proud of and given our community the best chance of succeeding in the chapters and years and months to come. So thank you so much, and I'll see you at the National Days of Action, and at every point to be annoying between now and then. Okay, see ya. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you for joining us tonight and for all of your work. We really appreciate you. So that actually ties us in quite well to we had a number of questions that we couldn't get to in this time. We've tried to group together what we could. We'll make sure that contact details are included for each of the groups who've spoken tonight, and Jordan as well, so that you can email to contact people to see if they can provide further info. But one of the things
I have one.
Oh, who's this? Sorry?
I have one more.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll go to you, Finley.
I have one more question.
Yes, please
Four.
ask your question, Finley.
For Q. For Q&I.
Q&I. Great. Brianna?
When? When can I? When can I go next?
Now, please, Finley. You will be our final question.
When can I go next meeting to listen?
Okay, I think this is a question about whether I will be able to go through that excessively detailed PowerPoint that I started with.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing scheduled at the moment. What I have done is sent through a copy of the PowerPoint to Rowena so that she can send it out to everyone who attended today.
I can't read.
Okay. That's a really good question then. Thank you for sharing that. What I'll do, if it's okay with you, I might have a chat with Rowena and see if there's anything that we can do to try and make this more accessible for you. I'm not sure off the top of my head, I'll be honest. but we'll see what we can do. And if it's okay, we might get back to you later. If you should,
Finley,
I think Rowena will have your contact details.
Oriella speaking. I have an idea. I could maybe verbally read the slides, and I think we might have your email. I can maybe email a voice or a video recording, screen recording of going through the slides if that's something that would be accessible for you. And I can do that sometime in the next week. I won't be, or someone else from the team might be able to do it, but I'm happy to do that if that's something that would be accessible for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for asking that question, because that will apply to other people in this room as well. So we will make sure that an audio or video recording is also provided of the written materials. Okay, so I'll go back to the group of questions that we had that were all about what are the next steps. And we had anticipated that. So we have invited, and you heard from them just a second ago without being able to see them. We organised for our national spokesperson for the Protect Our NDIS Alliance to, there we go. We have Oriella here. And Oriella is going to, I'm just going to do a quick, who is Oriella, so that you know who this person is who is about to speak to you. So Oriella Williams, pronouns they, them, is a co-organiser with the Protect Our NDIS Alliance National and Magan-djin team. They are a proudly disabled Lebanese non-binary dyke based in Magan-djin. Oriella has lived experience as an NDIS participant themselves with high physical disability and psychosocial support needs, being a full-time power wheelchair user, having daily caregivers, and is living in a specialist disability accommodation supported independent living environment, also known as SDA-SIL. As well as being a dedicated community organiser and activist, Oriella is a passionate disability justice advocate, lived living experience peer worker, and trained Alt-2 SU facilitator with a focus on anti-carceral, peer-led and trauma-informed responses to distress. So what Oriella is going to do for us tonight is take us into that realm of hope and action, and share how you can fight this bill. Over to you, Oriella.
Hello, everyone. So amazing to be here this evening. I just want to give a description. I'm Oriella. I use they, them pronouns. I'm joining today from the lands of the Yir Yoront and Turrbal peoples in Magan-djin, Mianjin, so-called Brisbane. I'm wearing a black t-shirt with silver chains and some headphones. I have dark hair with some blonde in my hair. My background is my kitchen with some colourful lights behind me. So, what's next for Protect Our NDIS National and Magan-djin specifically? We know this proposed NDIS bill is abhorrent. It's terrifying how harmful this bill is, and we need everyone to continue to fight with us. We joined together in May and June. We fought the bill from stopping from passing on July 1st. With advocacy and community pressure, the Senate inquiry into this bill has been extended, we know, until August 14th, and there has been over 4,500 submissions. And we have had 3 days currently of Senate hearings. I did attend the ones in Naarm, and the Senate, the submission extension deadline closed last Friday, the 10th of July. There will be further Senate hearings on the 30th to the 31st of July and the 6th of August. You can tune into those on the APH YouTube. Those will be live streamed, we hope. We had some accessibility issues last time with those in Naarm, but we hope so. With the bill having this extension, it means that we have the power. We have the power with our strength in our numbers. If we join together and keep building our community, keep building and putting pressure on the government to protect our NDIS. We need everyone to fight this bill. Allies, time to show up. Our friends, our workmates, carers, support workers, allied health and treating professionals, and small businesses, everyone, to know how harmful this NDIS bill is and the real tangible impacts this bill will have on our daily lives as disabled people. But not just that, but not just how this bill will impact us, but also the economy, jobs, employment, for all the workers who rely on these jobs within the scheme. If we lose skilled workers from the scheme, it will not be able to function. We will not be able to have our supports. We will not be able to exist and have lives filled with dignity and choice and control as disabled people. Raise your voices, have the hard conversations, follow our socials and share disabled voices who are all speaking out against these absolutely abhorrent cuts to the NDIS. We really, really, really need politicians to know how many of us will not vote for them if they pass this bill. Labor have shown us they aren't going to listen to the real, tangible evidence in front of them. But they are the only decision makers. We need to call Liberal and independent senators as many times as you can before August 14th and tell them to scrap this bill. I'd like to reiterate what Jordan Steele-John shared with us earlier on contacting Angus Taylor and let him know directly of how much of a fight we are willing to put up. We will not go down without a battle. This is our rights. This is our fight for dignity and care. We deserve to live full autonomous lives. We also have a calling guide that is in our Linktree. If you do struggle at all with calling, there are numbers that are also in that calling guide as well. Sure, we'll share that on our socials again once this session is over. But there are numbers on that template calling guide as well. And you can also email Liberal senators using the template from Every Australian Counts, which is also linked on our Linktree. The more people that share their stories and share their concerns, not just disabled people, but allies and support workers and caregivers and everyone that is involved in our daily lives, the stronger our message will be. We cannot let our stories be ignored. Our experiences must be heard. Because Labor will have you believe that cutting costs with reform to the NDIS is going to save it and salvage it. It's not. We've been calling for reform as disabled people for years, and the government has ignored those calls for many years. However, this bill, as well, does not tackle fraud, and the current estimates with the FOI suggest that around 241,000 people will be removed from the NDIS, and 106,000 disabled people, will be further refused access. Continuing to fight these cuts is imperative, and we must band together to do so. I want to say, to finish off tonight, that we have strength in numbers. There is hope. One thing that is imperative to hold on to is hope. Because as a community together, we have put enough pressure on the government already, and continuing to fight this bill will get that message right over the line. Now, one thing you can do is joining us on the streets on Saturday, the 1st of August, to show the government how many there are of us, how many of us we're willing to fight, and that we won't stop fighting until this bill is scrapped. We'll have more details on our socials coming up soon with location and times and accessibility info for the rally on August 1st. I'm really, really glad that we've had such an amazing turnout today, and I'm really proud of everyone that has fought thus far, and I can't wait to see us put such a loud group of people together on August 1st and fight this bill. We must continue to fight this bill. Our strength is absolutely incredible, and our numbers are important to doing so. So thank you everyone for joining today. It's been incredible.
Thank you so much, Oriella, and I knew that would be the way to get us all back on that spot of I can't even find myself to pin me. Here we go. So you could actually see me. This was I've also put up a slide. So I'm just going to quickly do a quick slideshow. This will be in the slide, but here we have the call to actions. We've got our links: National Day of Action, Saturday the 1st. What I'd like to do before we close up tonight is invite final remarks from our speakers. We're running very late, but if you could do it for maybe a sentence each of something that you'd like to call out, I'm going to do as we go. So I'll call on Cassie first.
I did put a post in the chat, but I thank everyone for coming together. Also, please don't forget our mob. They need your support. We need it. They're from a lot of remote locations, and don't have the ability or the voice to speak. So just when you're talking, think of how this changes will affect them as well. Thank you. That was more than 2 words, but I just wanted to put that out there.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Cassie. I'd like to now ask Ange for some final remarks.
Thanks, Rowena. Thank you for having me from AMPARO Advocacy here tonight. It's been great to be able to have the opportunity to share some of the challenges we have submitted or put in a submission to the Senate. So you can see our submission up on the website, on the Parliament website. Have a look. Please, like Cassie, also really get behind supporting the people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds and see the issues that the intersectional issues that they are faced with in trying to access and then get the support they need from the NDIS with no other supports in sight from Queensland coming through. Example, Thriving Kids. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Ange. And now I would like to ask for some final comments from Brianna.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to you all. It's always very isolating to be facing down such a devastating bill and seeing such an engaged group of people together in this forum was really heartening. I'm angry for us all that we have to be doing this, but I'm so glad that people like you are fighting along with us. I think I already said so many words at the start of this that I don't want to waste any more. But thank you. There's so much wrong with this bill, and it doesn't achieve what they're setting out to achieve. And everything that we can do to try and improve it or scrap it is time well spent.
Thank you so much, Brianna. And I'd like to ask everyone to join with me in a reaction of the clapping hands to say thank you to all of our presenters for giving up their time tonight. Thank you to our Auslan interpreters for making this possible. And I am so grateful for the volunteers behind the scene who've been supporting us, all disabled volunteers from Protect Our NDIS Alliance. I hope to see you out in the streets on Saturday, the 1st of August. As I said, we will circulate this recording. We will circulate audio of the slides for those who aren't able to read them, but we will also send round a written copy. It will take me a bit of time to get the caption sorted for the recording, so slides will go out straight away, but the recording will come. So again, thank you very much. And I will do my final little slide for you all that I prepared. Thank you for joining us. You can find everything on our Linktree, and I'll say goodnight now. And stop recording. Stop recording now. Thank you, everyone.